Hello, everyone. It's Brian here, and this is now, I guess, part 8 of my ranking of 200 favorite Canadian songs of all time, which I admit is kind of a dumb thing to do. However, I've committed now. I probably should have done 100 only, but let's forge on. This will be numbers 130 down to 121. And at the beginning of every episode, I say something like, I'm only choosing one song per artist, and I have to own the song on some sort of format, whether it's LP or CD or compilation. And the other thing I usually say is I start off by mentioning a few artists who are not on the list. And I can't remember if I mentioned Shania Twain as someone who's not on the list, but she's not on the list. Big Sugar is another one. I used to have a record by them. I don't anymore. Loverboy, which might surprise some people because they had, 2 or 3 monster hits in Canada and North America, I assume. But yeah, it never really worked for me. Let's see. Alana Miles is another person who's not on the list. That might surprise people. She has that sort of husky, really kind of deep, sexy kind of voice, I suppose, but never really appealed to me. I actually accidentally saw her in concert once. It was a free concert. I just walked in, I caught a few songs, and I kind of left. Another band I accidentally saw in concert was the Sheepdogs, and I don't know anything by them. Their songs are okay, but nothing that really appealed to me. So I'm going to start with number 130. This is a band out of, I can't remember where they're from, to be honest. I think Montreal area. They're on the Constellation record label. And if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you will know that I've mentioned Constellation Records numerous times. I would say it's my favorite record label out of Canada. Really esoteric kind of music, the home of post-rock possibly. And I've chosen for song 130, a track from this band called Esmerine. This is their album Dalmac, which is from 2013. The song I've chosen is Lost River Blues, which you may see there. I guess there's some sort of people swimming at some place. I don't know. So this band features Rebecca Foon, Becky Foon, who's from a band called Saltland, who coincidentally is another band that I did not include on this list, but almost did. So I really like her, but I couldn't. It was one of those weird situations where the albums sort of spoke to me more than individual songs, and I wasn't really sure how to rank that. So I really like Saltland, though. On this record, I mentioned Lost River Blues is the track I'm choosing. So they're I guess in a broad sense, you'd say a post-rock band, but with some interesting characteristics, such as the fact that there's a lot of Turkish kind of melodies in it. So modern chamber rock, perhaps, with a bit of drone and just general world influences and instrumental as well. So let me just show you what's in here. This track I've chosen, and the album in general, has sort of that feeling of a slow build to something with a lot of Middle Eastern and Arabic kind of sounds in it. There's an insert. Constellation always does great inserts. They always keep their albums in print, and they only ever use black vinyl. So I'll show you the label on this one. Side 1, or whatever side that is. There's also no percussion in this band, so that's something that's a little odd. But it really works, and it's sort of just a great atmospheric piece of music. So kind of like modern chamber music. So that's number 130. So number 129, I picked another, a Godspeed You Black Emperor side project, because Aidan Gert, who's the percussionist or the drummer in Godspeed You Black Emperor, and the band called Exhaust, put out this one-off record which he called One Speed Bike, and the album's called Droopy But Be Gone from the year 2000. This is a fantastic record. I just think this is incredible. It is available on vinyl. I just don't have it on vinyl. Here's the insert, and I'll tell you the song in a moment. So there's the usual Constellation stuff, and then there's some more stuff from Constellation, and then the CD. Suddenly his head began to turn. So I'm going to read you something because I copied it down because it sort of summarized the song I'm choosing in a way I could never do myself. So the song is called Yuppie Restaurant Goers Beware, because this song is for the dishwasher, not the appliance, but the person. And the quote I took just from AI because I thought it was interesting. By the way, this song is a remix of a track from Fly Pan Am, which is another band that I absolutely adore. It's a repetitive, kind of hypnotizing track that is really great. So it says, operating in the Montreal region as a mobile activist sound system, one-speed bike infused sample-heavy electronic music with anti-capitalist, pro-labor messaging. The intentionally provocative title highlights class friction within the service industry, positioning the music as a chaotic, high-energy anthem for back-of-the-house kitchen staff working under demanding conditions. Fascinating. So that, I didn't show you the back of that. That's One Speed Bike with that long title that I will not repeat at 129. Now, 128 is a band I have mentioned before. And again, this is available on vinyl. I just don't have it. It's a band from Toronto, kind of an Afrobeat band from Toronto called Glissandro 70. And interestingly, I showed this record in the past, and Garage Geek, David actually did a whole section on this album. He actually listened to it and gave his opinion on it, which was quite cool. There's the back. So I'm choosing a song called End West, which is the last track. So again, when I say it's Afrobeat, but it's really, again, post-rock. This is, I should have mentioned, also on the Constellation label. So the first 3 records are all from the Constellation record label. Here's the inside. So this is a 13-minute track that came out in 2006. And it is a really cool, I can't even possibly describe it. It's a very cool track that kind of goes along in the post-rock style. But interestingly, the band samples Talking Heads track Izimbra, the kind of vocal part. It's hard to explain. If you listen to the track, you'll pick it up at certain parts in the track. They reference Izimbra from Talking Heads, which I think is very cool. So kind of an experimental track that I really quite like. 127 is undoubtedly, I guess, a guilty pleasure. When this band first arrived on the scene in Toronto, they were kind of everywhere. I met them more than one occasion. I saw them busking on the streets. I sat at the table next to them during the Casby Awards at CFNY. And they were kind of everywhere. And I think, it's hard to really say anything about this band because they're so well known, although there was a big personnel change earlier in their career. Anyway, I'm talking about the Bare Naked Ladies. So, as you know, Stephen Page left after that cocaine incident and whatnot. This is a record called Stunt, which came out in 1997. And I'm picking arguably their biggest song, perhaps. And for me, I guess a little bit of a guilty pleasure because it's not a band that I really adore, but for some reason that song really stuck with me. There's the back of this. And the track I'm talking about is the lead-off track from this record called 1 Week, which was a huge hit. In fact, oddly, I read some time ago that song spent exactly 1 week on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, which is hilarious because it's called 1 Week. And of course, if you know this track, you'll know that it's just filled with pop culture reference, some Canadianisms. It's really kind of an intriguing song. And apparently, when it was written, Ed Robertson would kind of improvise live in concert to get the cadence and the words he wanted to use right. He recorded and refined it. So I can't sing along to that song. It's still played on the radio. Here's the insert. Just lyrics in there. Yeah, sort of a band that I don't really pay a lot of attention to, and I find them decidedly less interesting once Stephen Page had departed from the band. But kind of an interesting song, and I will admit, the video is kind of fun too. So, kind of an interesting song. 126 is a local band called the Paka Orchestra. Now, Paka apparently is a Hindi word, which means genuine, authentic, or something like that. And so they put it together. Some sort of family tie-in, somebody's grandfather. I'm not remembering it all correctly. This record is just called Paka Orchestra. It came out in 1984. They were formed in Toronto in 1979. And they were on the scene for quite a while. Unfortunately, the singer Graham Williamson, and I guess he wrote much of the lyrics, passed away some years ago. I think about 6 years ago. So the band is no more. And interestingly, this particular copy came from the CBC Music Library. I have a number of records from the CBC. Radio Canada, which is the same thing. They were, I guess the library closed and their records ended up in record stores across the city. They're always well taken care of. So you'll see there's a sticker on here which says Radio Canada, and then at the front you'll see content, your Canadian content. So that's like the CanCon thing. It made them easy to go along the shelf and pull out Canadian content to follow our Canadian content rules. And the song I'm choosing is called Cherry Beach Express, which is the first song on side one, which is a song about, it's an anti-police brutality song. And by the way, this band did an absolutely stunning version of Tom Robinson's Atmospherics. Terrific. Really great. And a few other songs. I mean, they were known here for quite a few songs. There's a kind of a novelty song in here called Rubber Girl, which is, I guess, as close as you can get to the Police's Be My Girl Sally. So, anyway, Cherry Beach Express. And it just talks about how he's handcuffed and brutalized on his way to the 52 division, I guess, which is downtown on Dundas Street. And it's a song about anti-police brutality. The Toronto Police did not like that song as far as I understand it. And the Toronto Police Service attempted to block radio stations from playing that song, which is like how to make a song. That's the Streisand effect, right? How to make it even more popular. So here is so apparently it has to do with a real incident of police brutality, but I don't really know too much about what happened there. But anyway, there we go. That's Pucka Orchestra. I saw them in concert. Yes, way back when, years ago. 125 is strangely from a song, and I just showed in the vinyl tag I did. Was it this week? I can't remember. I did a summer vinyl tag, the one with Bobby Gaylor and Peter from Music as a Journey. And I showed this song, and yet here it is again. So 125, I have chosen a track called Lager and Ale from Kim Mitchell. And of course, he was the lead singer and guitarist of Max Webster, which is a phenomenal quirky Canadian band, sometimes compared with Frank Zappa. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's totally accurate. Also, they were label mates for a time with Rush, so they opened for Rush numerous times. And then when the band stopped being a band, Kim Mitchell went out on a solo career. And I said before that I liked I liked Max Webster more than solo Kim Mitchell. Some of solo Kim Mitchell is a bit too radio friendly, like his big hit Go for a Soda, which was used in a Miami Vice episode, is very well known. I think it was his only American hit south of the border here. And then another popular track is Patio Lanterns. I don't love those songs, but I do like the sound of Lager and Ale, which is on this album here on side 2. And it's funny, I was thinking about this song because Go for a Soda, which leads off the album, was co-opted by the anti-drunk driving movement. Don't have a beer when you're out, go for a soda. But that's actually not what the song's truly about. But it's funny that Lager and Ale on side 2 is about making decisions in a bar about which kind of beer you're going to drink. He's trying to meet women in the bar, etc. So it's kind of like the opposite of that song in some ways. But I've said before, I think he is a really underrated guitarist, really, in Canada. I just think, I've often said Bruce Cockburn is Canada's best guitarist, but Kim Mitchell may be the most underrated guitarist. I think he is really super talented, and I don't think he got the attention he kind of deserved. And that sort of excellent guitar work is a bit lost in his solo work, I guess, a little bit. I think the Max Webster stuff was far more interesting. So that was 1984 from Akimbo Elogo. Now, number 124 is from a band that's really a side project or an offshoot of the sort of hardcore band in Toronto called Fucked Up. So that's Jade Hairpins, which features 2 of the members of that band who put out this surprisingly kind of electronic, almost synth pop, and not really synth pop, but synth in a way. Electronic maybe is a better word. Electronic pop or rock record. So you'll see the hype sticker there. And I think this was released to very little fanfare. They just put a second album out after that. I haven't heard that one. Pop foraging with analog acoustics and electronic landscaping, courtesy of Jonah Falco and Mike Heliachuk on Merge Records. That's the front of the record. Here's the back, which I already showed you. And the song I'm choosing is Don't Break My Devotion, which you will see there. So this sounds nothing like the band they come from. But there's something with the song that I really quite like. I suppose at some point I should get the second record, if I can remember. But it's just a kind of a cool song. I'm not going to say too much about it. It's just kind of nice. So I think they did a good job on that. Jade Hairpins. number 123, sort of a Canadian, I guess, even campus rock kind of icon. He did the campus circuit for years, little clubs and bars along the way. He's a Canadian blues rock guitarist and singer known as David Wilcox. There is, of course, an American singer called David Wilcox, I think in the folk realm. But this is more of a blues rock sound. I think this originally was released in 77 and then re-released. So my copy is from 1983. So anyway, he is very well known, kind of like a smoky bar kind of thing going on there. And I've chosen, there's a number of songs that still get played on the radio. I've chosen the last track on the album called That Hypnotizing Boogie. So he was from Montreal, played in a lot of different bands. I think at one point he was in Sylvia Tyson's band, something like that. Hypnotizing Boogie is a very cool kind of, really upbeat kind of blues rock song referencing all sorts of historical people like Queen Victoria, Cleopatra, Caesar, etc. It's on this Capitol label here. So pretty fun song. I mean, that song will get you going. It's a pretty cool song. I don't love everything he's released, but in the early days he had this really cool kind of blues rock sound, which I thought was really kind of fun. Oh, this one's in one of those, sorry, forgot to take it out. So now we're down to number 122, featuring a singer from Edmonton. I'm not sure where they formed the band. I know that the singer Mo Berg is from Edmonton, and that is The Pursuit of Happiness, TPOH. And this is their debut full-length record called Love Junk. I always forget the name of this record. There they are on the back here. So this came out in 1988. This album was produced by Todd Rundgren, if that is important to you. And on this record, there's a number of tracks that got radio airplay. And arguably, their most famous song is on this record called I'm an Adult Now, which has a video. There's two versions of that song. There's an original sort of version that came out on a 12-inch, and then they re-recorded it. But I'm not choosing that song. I'm choosing a song called She's So Young, which you might see listed there, which I quite like. I mean, like all this, I mean, I do love their music. Their first two albums, I think, were really, really fantastic. I've seen them in concert, of course. But for some reason, She's So Young appealed to me. What else is on this record that you might know? Beautiful White was a song that got some radio play. Killed by Love. So The Pursuit of Happiness. And I think, if my memory is correct, he's now a part of the Canadian Highwaymen, which is this kind of a super group featuring a member of Sloan. You've got someone from, now I'm going to forget, I think Stephen Page, ex of the Bare Naked Ladies. I can't remember. I'm not going to remember all the names, but they're in this sort of super group. Okay, so number 121, last for today, is a Hungarian-born musician who really found his footing in Canada. I can't remember when he came to Canada, but I think he was a child. And that is, but I could be wrong, a man called Bibi Gabor. Kind of a tragic story. He did 2 records, and then in 1990, he committed suicide, if you can believe it. So this came out in 1980. His musical career was certainly launched here. Another Punch-Out thing. So there were 2 really big hits on here, in Canada at least. Metropolitan Life, which I love. And then a track called Soviet Jewelry, or Niet Niet Soviet. And it talks about the fact that he is, and you can tell he has an Eastern European frame of reference because he talks about being a decadent and that the KGB is coming to put him away, and Soviet jewelry turns out to be handcuffs. So he's handcuffed and taken away. So anyway, tragic story because he took his own life. So here's the back. Oddly, his second record, which is not as well regarded as this record, I've never heard it. So I don't know anything about that record. It's on the Anthem label, of course, where Rush and Max Webster used to hang out. So you're better dead than red, according to Bibi Gabor. So that takes us down to number 121, and part 9 will be coming up at some point. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.